My name is Jen Kluke, and this is my project on the role of basketry in Wabanaki tribes. Here I am during my visit to the Hudson Museum as part of my research for this project. This was an interactive display, and it was really neat to climb inside and look around and everything. Who are the Wabanaki? The Wabanaki call themselves the people of the Dawnland. Their homelands are made up of northern New England in the U.S., along with southeastern Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island in Canada. In the U.S., the Wabanaki are made up of 5 federally recognized tribes: the Penobscot Nation, the Passamaquoddy tribe at Pleasant Point or Sipayik, the Passamaquoddy tribe at Indian Township, the Holton Band of Maliseet, and the Aroostook Band of Micmac. The Wabanaki origin story talks of Glooskap shooting his arrows into the ash trees from which the Wabanaki people emerged. This presentation seeks to answer the question, what role does basket making play in Wabanaki tribes? The Wabanaki were hunters and gatherers. They moved seasonally and used materials from the woods and wetlands, such as bark, wood, sweetgrass, to make useful containers in addition to baskets which they used for work, processing food, and carrying supplies. Splint basketry refers to baskets made from thin strips of wood, which could be ash, cedar, spruce, or maple, which are woven together. This type of basketry is an important focus of Wabanaki culture and spiritual life. This is a Passamaquoddy fish scale basket. It was used for processing fish. And here is a quote that you can read where a Penobscot woman talks about her mother and the basket making that she did. You can pause and read that or read it quickly if you'd like. And over here we have a Penobscot candy basket. Children would make little bookmarks in candy baskets. They would use scraps and leftover materials to get started. And this one still has its price tag of 10 cents. This was also at the Hudson Museum when I went to see the exhibit. The skill of basket making is passed down through the family, and many Native people supported their family through making and selling baskets. In the Micmac tribe, it is traditionally men who make wood splints for basketry using logs of ash, poplar, maple, birch, and cedar. Richard Sillyboy, a member of the Aroostook Band of Micmac, grew up in northern Maine and talks of his mother making up to 150 baskets per week and selling them for 50 cents each up in Aroostook County. He talks of watching his mother work so hard and get so little from it, and remembers being discouraged. The next generation of basket makers was affected by negative associations such as this one. However, basket making has now become a source of cultural pride, specifically for young men. Gabriel Frey, a member of the Passamaquoddy, talks of his grandfather teaching him to make strong and beautiful utility baskets. As many members of his family had taken to making fancy baskets, Gabriel felt it was necessary to carry on the tradition and art of the utility basket in order to preserve it. Through these accounts and many more that exist, we see that basket making works to bring generations and communities together. It's an intergenerational art and activity that involves many hands. And over here we have Saved by Creativity. Now the video starts automatically within my presentation. However, I am using another program to add audio to my presentation, so that doesn't translate well here. So I will include a link to that YouTube video, this one right here that was about to play, in the comments. And I will also include a link to this presentation, which does not have audio. Okay. So here is part of the display at the Hudson Museum again, and we see here they talk about the origin story here that I mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. and more about basket making as an occupation. After contact with the Europeans, it is thought that the production of splint basketry increased as trade with Europeans increased. At the start of the 18th century, basket making took on new economic and cultural meaning with its application to trade and tourism, and was further shaped by museums with the development of a market for Wabanaki baskets. During the 20th century, tourism declined secondary to the Great Depression, and World War II and basket making declined as a result. However, the Civil Rights Movement, along with the American Indian Movement and American Bicentennial, stimulated cultural pride, which was further reinforced by the Maine Indian Land Claim Settlement of 1980 and the federal recognition of the tribe of Micmacs residing in Maine, with revival of production of traditional crafts as a byproduct. This led to renewed practice of elders teaching the younger generation how to make ash splint baskets, along with other traditional crafts. The Maine Indian Basket Makers Alliance is a nonprofit organization founded by Wabanaki basket makers and has become important for marketing and reviving splint basketry and other crafts, public education regarding tribal issues, revitalization of Wabanaki languages and culture, and preservation of basket making, with a focus of passing on skills to the younger generations through apprenticeships with elders. Now let's talk about the actual baskets. I traveled to the Hudson Museum in Orono, Maine, where there is an excellent display of Wabanaki basketry, of which I have included pictures throughout this presentation. Basket making was primarily utilitarian prior to European contact, with Micmacs and Maliseets making sturdy baskets used for harvesting potatoes in northern Maine. However, with tourism came the advent of fancy baskets, which were made of ash splints, sweetgrass, and other materials. Utility baskets are heavier and sturdier and are used for the work of gathering, transport, processing, and storage of food, while fancy baskets have a focus on ornamentation. Making baskets was a family affair, with men typically harvesting the logs and forming splints, making the wooden forms, which worked to determine the basket's shape. There's a wooden form, a couple of them right over here to the right. Women dyeing the splints and weaving the baskets. Children helping with harvesting and braiding sweetgrass. And I'm over here again on the left, and I am holding a bunch of sweetgrass that we were allowed to hold at the museum that day. And over here also is a list of materials commonly used, and also a list of the handmade tools. There are approximately 200 Wabanaki basket makers in Maine today. For many Wabanaki, basket making today is intertwined with tribal sovereignty, as it represents the process of decolonization. Additionally, land use rights come into play in collection of materials to carry on this traditional art, and basket makers are faced with restricted access to sites for harvesting of materials such as brown ash and sweetgrass. Coastal development, landowner attitudes, and new regulations serve to limit access to traditional lands for gathering of ash and sweetgrass. Additionally, there are individuals who attempt to sell baskets labeled as Wabanaki that are not, in fact, made by any member of one of the 5 tribes. Added to this is probably the largest threat to basket making, the emerald ash borer. This invasive species of beetle is thought to have traveled here from Asia, and with the assistance of humans through transportation of infected wood, threatens to destroy nearly all ash trees in North America. This picture is 2 emerald ash borers emerging from an ash tree. Maine has banned importing and transporting of firewood from other states since 2010 in an attempt to protect the future of our ash trees and Wabanaki basketry. Black ash task forces work to educate regarding identification of the emerald ash borer and work to preserve the ash trees. Conservationists and basket makers save seeds in an attempt to preserve these trees for future generations, in addition to recording films to educate future generations regarding identification and processing of these trees into baskets. Additionally, some Wabanaki basket makers are returning to the use of other traditional materials in making baskets, such as basswood, birch, maple, and cedar. All of this is being done in order to protect and carry on with the tradition of Wabanaki basket making, which continues to serve as a way for these peoples to identify and carry on with their culture and stay connected to each other through the generations so that this culture and language is not lost. And here is my reference slide. These are all the references I used to put this together. Thank you so much for listening.